For additional insight, we have Joseph Grinkorn of the Morris Group on the set. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, look, Americans celebrated the Day of Independence just recently, and on this landmark holiday, tell us about the state of the U.S. economy.
I would say the U.S. economy right now is stable. You know, of course, now we've crossed the first half of the year, and the data has been very, very mixed. A lot of good positive news, but again, gaps of also negative news. So I think I would definitely categorize it as stable, and we're going to have to see how the coming months play out and see how the data folds.
Speaking of the data, we have an important jobs report coming out this Friday. How do you expect it to go?
Well, you know, of course, we had a terrible jobs report last month, you know, of just creating 38,000 jobs. So I'm looking for, you know, for this week's report and this month's report, rather to really bounce back nicely and to meet expectations, if not slightly beat.
All right. Well, how do you think the Fed will react and move in the next few months?
Well, I think the Fed is going to take a really, really long summer vacation and really take a very, very big pause. Also, obviously, everything that's happening domestically, again, stable, positive and negative news, but also, of course, everything that's happening over in Europe, you know, with everything that's happening, you know, with Brexit. So I think she's just going to wait and see, and I don't see any kind of rate hikes happening this year at all.
Wow, that is quite a difference from what we just heard from her just earlier in this year. Do tell us, though, you mentioned Brexit, and certainly it is a big topic, very important for traders recently. What effects do you expect that it will have on the U.S. economy?
Well, I don't think Brexit itself is going to have any negative effects on the U.S. economy. I think the biggest problem with Brexit is the contagion factor. As we see what's been happening as of the last couple of weeks in the financials, of course with the UK banks and now Italy, and it's been slowly spreading. So I think, you know, obviously Brexit itself is not going to do anything, but if the situation gets worse and really starts to spread throughout Europe, it could have an effect on the U.S. economy.
Do you think that it's going to have a big effect on the global economy?
Again, that all that all depends on how far this thing really, really spreads. Again, if they have a very, very simple and very, very clean real separation from the EU, I think things can be contained. But if it's, you know, almost like a messy divorce, I think, you know, we could be possibly seeing some kind of recession in Europe and possibly temporarily in the global economies.
Do you think that we can see some major stimulus efforts by the ECB head as well as the Bank of England?
Of course, Mark Carney definitely is going to have his plate full. And he has a lot of tools right now to really cut rates, do a lot of, you know, quantitative easing, because he hasn't done that before. On the other hand, if you flip to Mario Draghi, I think he's really kind of used everything he can. He's pumping 80 billion euros every month into the EU. He's already at like negative rates right now. So I think really the onus and everything is really going to fall on Mark Carney to really backstop any kind of possible recession happening.
Well, that certainly highlights the importance of the central banks. Thank you very much for being with us with this important insight.